so this video is going to help you factorize quadratics like this, and hopefully you can go and practice. And the best bit about this, or the best bit to help you, is to make sure that you do practice, and of course get used to knowing your times tables really well. Okay, so 3 little things you want to do just before you start one of these. The first thing, we want to make sure that each of those is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So you want to have the x squared out the front, followed by the x, and then you've got your constant term. Next thing, look for any common factor that might exist, and try and make sure that the x squared, the value in front of the x squared, is positive. That's just going to make your life easier. And then we go on and we check for the sum and product that we can factorize. That's how we do it. So here we go. Let's have a look. We look at the first question, and lucky for us, it's already in our form. Right, we've got the x squared out the front, and the value in front, that's technically a 1, it's positive, so all good to go. We then draw our eyes to the 24, and we're looking for 2 numbers that times together give you 24 and add up to be 10. Now, I'd like to think that you can probably see what those numbers are already, but let's assume you couldn't see them just for some reason. So if you can't get those factors, 2 numbers that times together give you 24 but add up to 10, be systematic in listing out your factors. So always start with 1. So 1 goes into 24 times. Then go up in increments, 1 increment. So 2 goes in 12 times. Does 3 go in? Yes. 8 times. Does 4 go in? 6 times. Does 5? No. 6. Now because 6 is on the other side, bang, we've got all of the factors possible. You're not missing any. They're all there. And clearly, I think you guys all chose 4 and 6 right from the beginning. Okay, so obviously you don't have to list these every single time. It's only if you get stuck. And I would say after 5 seconds, if you can't see the numbers, then quickly list them and move on, because this should not take a lot of time. So then we end up saying, right, x plus 4, x plus 6. And I always like to just take 5 seconds out of my life to double check if I did expand this, right? Would I get this answer? And clearly, yes, I would. Okay, so onward and upward, we now have a look. What happens if the number that we're trying to times together is negative? Simple. It means that one number is positive, one number is negative. So we're still looking for 2 numbers that times together give me minus 30, but now will add up to be minus 7. Again, have a look. Some of you might already know it. If you can't see it, remember what we said before, list the factors. 1 and 30, 2 and 15. Does 3 go in? 10 times. Does 4? No. Does 5? 6 times. Does 6? Well, 6 is on the other side, so you can now stop. We've got all of our factors. So which pair could we possibly get negative 7 from? It's got to be that. So we've got our x, 3, x, 7, and clearly one's got to be positive, one's negative, and so the only way that when you add them together to get negative 7, it would have to be positive 3, take 7. So that becomes plus 3 minus 7. Okay, if you had it the other way around, if you had minus 3 and positive 7, well, that gives you, why am I saying minus 7? Hope you caught that. If I had it that way, then minus 3 plus 10 will give me positive 7, and that's not what I wanted. And of course, if you happen to write x take 10, x plus 3, these are exactly the same, all right? So it doesn't matter which way you write it. I tend to have my smaller number first. Let's look at the next one. Now, the 2 numbers times together, it's back to being positive, but when I add them together, I want a negative sum. So that means both of them must be negative. Okay, again, if you've already seen it, fantastic. This is the last time we'll do this. So 1 and 40, 2 and 20. Does 3 go in? No, it doesn't. Does 4? 10 times. 5 goes in. 5 eighths are 45. 6. No. 7. No. 8. And it's on the other side, so I can stop. So out of these, which is the only combination that will get me a 13, here we go. So negative 5, and -8. Okay, double check. Negative times a negative gives me the positive 40 that I wanted. Minus 8x, take another 5x, is in fact minus 13x. Okay, nearly there. Now we're timesing, we want a -42. If you don't know and see, I'll give you 5 seconds and list your factors. You could pause the video and list the factors. Okay, and hopefully we come up with 6 sevens are 42. But obviously one has to be positive and one has to be negative, because when I multiply them together, it's a minus, as we said. So the only way that can happen is if it's -6 plus 7. If it was the other way, you would get, if it was +6 and take 7, then that gives you -1, and that's not what you want. So it's x take 6, x plus 7. Okay, done. We have a look at this one. It's in the right form again, but it hasn't got a negative, it hasn't got a positive out the front, it's a minus. And that number is actually a -1. So we're going to pull out that -1 as a common factor. Now you could write -1. I just tend to write minus. So pull that out. We have x squared. Now a minus times what gives me positive 5x? That's got to be minus. A negative times a negative gives me the positive. And then along those same lines, a negative times a positive has to give me a -6. So now we cast our eyes, we keep that minus out the front there, and we just now focus on what's inside the bracket. So once again, we're looking for two numbers that times together give you 6, but adds up to be -5. And believe it or not, this is actually a rather tricky one, because both of the pairs that times together give me 6, I could get 5 out of both of those, right? 1 take 6 gives me -5, and of course, so we'll put that there. 1 take 6 gives me -5, and -2 take 3 also gives me -5. But remember, when you times these values together, it has to give you +6. So if I times +1 and -6, that's going to give me -6, and that's not what I want. So it has to be x take 2 and x take 3. Okay, so always be careful. Make sure that once you've chosen your pairs, you do a quick check. Does it satisfy? And if I was to expand it, does it get me back to my original equation? Okay, come to the next one. I see two things. One, there's a 3 in front of the x. And it's not an x squared, it's an x cubed. But then I notice every other term has an x. So what we're going to do is pull out our common factor, the highest common factor. And I notice all the numbers have got a factor of 3. So I'm going to pull out 3. And as we said before, every term also has an x. So 3x times what gives me 3x cubed? Has to be x squared, right? Double check, x times x squared gives me x cubed. Happy with that? Right, 3 times what gives me 21, so that's 7. And x times what gives me x squared? That's got to be my x. Nearly there. 3 times what gives me 54, 18. And of course, no x there, because 3x times, sorry, x times 18 will give me that x there. 3x times 18 gives me 54. Okay, leave that 3x out the front. We're again focusing on what is inside our brackets. So we're looking for two numbers that times together give me -18, but adds up to be 7. By now, I think you're rocking and rolling with your times tables. We know that 9 2s give me 18. And they have a difference of 7. So which one's positive, which one's negative? It has to be +9 take 2 gives me 7. Okay. Right, nearly there. Last one. This one's not in the form of ax squared. Right, it's not in this nice form. So we will first thing we will do is just pop it in that form. We'll put the minus 4x squared out the front, making sure to keep the sign that's in front of it. The sign that's in front of 24x, that's positive, so plus 24x, and then followed by minus 36. Again, ask ourselves, is there a common factor? And we can see 4 goes into every single term here, but it's also got this minus. So I'm going to pull out not just 4, but minus 4. So minus 4 times x squared gives me the minus 4x squared that I want. Negative times a negative 6 gives me positive 24x. So you're either looking at it as going minus 4 times what gives me 24, or you are dividing through, right? 24 divided by negative 4 gives me negative 6. Depends how you like to look at it. And of course, minus 4 goes into 36 9 times there. Right? Remember, focusing now what's inside the bracket. Two numbers that times together give you 9, but add up to be 6. And the only factors of 9 are 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. So those are our winners. And when I times them together, I want a positive 9, but when I add them together, I want minus 6, so it's both negative there. And I'd like it if you could finish off by writing that as x take 3 times x take 3 is, of course, x take 3 squared. All right, so now can you go and have a look, practice the questions from the exercise that we've set, and make sure that you're checking your answers as you go, so you know that you've got it right straight away. Good luck.